Welcome back to the latest Pyro Pro Videocast. Today we're going to talk about tiers and all the beauty and how we do different tiers, how tiers can mean different things to different people. For newbies that don't know much about tiers, we're giving you a primer and going through and telling you why you should be using tiers, and on your draft day, make sure that the only thing you've got is one sheet of paper in front of you. As usual, I got Stagg Party left of me. I got Dawgmatica. I'm D-Rex. We are Pyromaniac.com. And, you know, let's just get into it. We try and do these videos so that we can give you a different kind of content. And we're excited to talk about tiers because it's something we are religious about. Stagg's been a big proponent. One of the guys that really brought it to our attention a while ago. Me and Dawg have been doing tiers videos for as long as we can remember.
Oh, yeah.
Wearing the same shirts.
Funny story. Yeah, we're wearing the same shirts as we wore in our 2013 tiers video. Check it out. It's a pretty good time. So Dawgmatica was wearing his Bob Marley shirt, probably the same hat.
And I was a different hat. That was a Michigan State
and
hat.
I was wearing my Pyro, maybe a different color, but I only have like 16 of these things. No one else is buying them. I might as well buy. So, in Stagg Party, I'll just tell you right now, we really wish we could pan down because he has got the greatest loafer sock combo that I've seen in a long time. It's just great stuff. So let's get into tiers. I'll start with you, Dawg. You know, we'll just do free form and spitfire. What's your favorite thing, and what give something to them about tiers and why you're so into it?
Okay, well, I think first and foremost, one of the things that it does for you when you're sitting there at draft day is it reduces all the clutter. You can, every single other person, I'm guaranteeing it almost, every single other person in your league probably comes with at least 5, 10, 15, sometimes upwards of 20 sheets that they're scrambling around through, or magazines or whatnot, or even if you have a computer, they'll still have some sheets, but they're going back and forth. All you need when you come to a draft, when you're coming to a draft against your league, is one sheet, and that's it, and that's the tiers. Because it literally takes into every bit of account everything that you've done up until then. And reducing the clutter can really make a huge difference for you when you're pressed for time. Let's say you're on a 60-second clock or 90-second clock or whatnot, or you had to go take a piss real quick or whatever. It makes it just that much simpler. The simpleness of it, the simplicity of it is second to none.
I'm going to agree, but disagree on one factor. I'm going in with 2 tier sheets this season.
Nice.
I'm going to go in with my fake tier sheet, and I'm putting it on top of my real tier sheet, because I've been using these things for so long, and they're so airtight that people are always looking over my shoulder like a bunch of motherfuckers. So I'm going straight slander on top.
That is good, and you're going to
the exact opposite of, I got, Mark Sanchez is a tier 1 quarterback, and it's just going to be straight propaganda. And then underneath, I'm going to have the actual tier sheet, and it's just going to be, the exact way we guys are talking about, just the end-all, be-all of everything we'll use. And actually, we just did a mock draft in the last couple weeks as a team here, and I did not use tiers once.
Really?
It was the worst draft I've ever done in my life.
Okay.
Like, I think I drafted Alshon Jeffrey before Arian Foster this season, and it was just, I got off my softball game, and I was a little bit drunk, after a couple of Busch Lattes, and I did not have my tiers in front of me.
Lattes!
Oh, man. He's wearing teal shorts, too. Let's just put that out there.
Busch Lattes. Love it, dude.
So I'm drinking a couple of Busch
heard
Lattes, and I don't have my tiers, I'm just drafting, and it's like, I gotta get this guy, and I gotta get this guy. And it's like Arian Foster's still on the board, CJ Anderson's still on the board, and I'm like, what was I doing? And I just after doing that in that draft, I just kept going on without it, and I made a lot of really bad picks. And the only pick I think I made that was good was Travis Kelce in the 5th round. And that's just because I knew that was something I knew I was gonna do.
Yeah. Well, I'll piggyback on you guys, and it goes kind of what Dawgmatica said. Come in with one sheet. I'm a big proponent of the 11 by 17. So here's an 8.5 by 11. So if you put tiers on that, that's great. But if you fit it to 11 by 17, a lot better. Look at all that space. You can have tons of room for positioning. You can make the spacing big so you can circle players and you're not crossing off another one. That's one thing I'll just, a caveat I'll quickly say is if you're drinking, you can do it with tiers, but make sure you don't make your circle around your guy that you pick cross out a dude that's still available. In mocks, I've done it, where it's like it's such a circle and then I'm like, oh, he was still available, and I'm like, you idiot. It's the circle of your guy that crossed out another available player. Sorry, I digress.
And you old people can like see it.
Hey, I got great vision. I got great vision. I might need pills for my penis to work, but I'm good on the vision front. But yeah, just making, you can take notes on the side. You can write in your team here so you know what you've got. You can do brackets and fill in spaces so you know which guys you have at each position so you can know where you're light. I mean, tiers, if you do the preparation and you set these things up now, it's literally it's accumulation of all the hard work you do in the off season. If you're watching this video, you're probably working on your fantasy football acumen and trying to build your what you're going to be doing for this coming drafts. If you're doing that and you put all that energy and all this information you learn into these tiers and divide these guys up accordingly, you are going to be in a better place than your draft. Dog, give the listeners a little bit of an idea, overview of what tiers are and what your thought is on how you classify a tier 1 guy versus a tier 2, how many guys you put in each, and just kind of give your little manifesto to tiers and for maybe some of the new people.
Okay, well, first of all, the precedent for tiers is that you've got to make them your own. We'll put those out there for you, and we all do our tiers, and they're in our draft kit. We eventually put them up on our site, but get the draft kit. They're very in-depth and whatnot, and you'll have them right there, and we also have a space right next to all of ours where you could put your own tiers. So that's very important, to have your own style and your own thought into what your tiers are. But what they basically are in general is your set of rankings. It's your set of rankings split up into various sections. And when I talk about sections, I'm talking about this specifically. Let's say there are 3 guys in your top tier of running backs. Let's say it's maybe AP, Jamal Charles, and Le'Veon Bell. The reason why you were to cut it off right there at that point and make it into another tier is because the people beneath that first tier you don't quite trust as much as you do the guys in the initial tier. Let's say right under that is maybe a Eddie Lacy or a Arian Foster or LaShawn McCoy or DeMarco Murray, Matt Forte, Marshawn Lynch. All of those guys I actually would have in my second tier.
I think I do.
Yeah, and right after that, I cut it off again because I don't quite trust the guys right behind that, such as Jeremy Hill or a CJ Anderson or whatnot. It really, in my mind, it goes on a matter of trust. And the trust is where I cut off each of those tiers. And it really pays huge dividends, because once you get past a certain point with certain guys, you could start even looking at other positions with guys still left in a higher tier and say, I trust these guys more in this tier in a different position than you do in, say, the 3rd or 4th tier in the running back position.
My pyromaniac.com trust level goes Daisy, then everybody else.
Oh, there you go.
Daisy the sheepdog, then everybody else.
Yeah. You're good. She's good at this stuff. She's good at this stuff. She's passed out about 6 feet away. Like, what do these guys do? And they're all staring at the wall, talking about some gibberish. It's fantasy football, Daisy. The one thing I'll take the next step with Dawgmatica. Totally great point. That's awesome. Just to make sure you guys know, you're classifying each of these tier brackets by position. So the quarterbacks are sitting right next to the running backs, who are sitting right next to the wide receivers, who are sitting right next in their own column, the tight ends. So really what I think, when you're breaking down tiers individually by position and you put them all next to each other on one 11 by 17 sheet, what it really gives you is this bird's eye view, this overarching, looking down, I'm God almost on the landscape of fantasy football in draft time, and you are able to see trends. You're able to see positions at a glance, instead of, like you mentioned, being that guy that's on ESPN doing a comparison on stats for 2 players real time while he's on the clock. Do that, but do it ahead of the time and have that represented in your tiers. But I think just the way that it can classify the different positions helps so much when you know a need and you're trying to lock in on a position, which you never should do, because tiers can help you prove something that Dawg will probably get to in a little bit, prove that you shouldn't be locking on this position because there's a high value, even if it's not a need. The best player on the board by a margin, and by your estimation, is over here. But I think when you have all this stuff in one view, it's so crucial, and so it makes things so much easier. And there's so many mistakes when you're not having a tiers, or you're just going off a top 200 rankings. There's so many mistakes, or you are looking through a magazine and going to a team page to find out information about a player. We all know we got plenty of guys in our leagues. Just get all that stuff done, and if you go by your tiers and you put the time in now, you're not going to mess up. It's going to be really, really straightforward on what you need. And do the mocks leading up to it, because, you know, that helps you. In all honesty, going back to the mock that you talked about, we were talking before we did this video. I think there's about 2 or 3 mistakes I made. And in hindsight, I go back to my tiers as I had them. I go back and feel the pain that I felt when I missed a pick, or when some guy got picked before I wanted him, and you tweak your tiers. You go back and you make the adjustment, and those mock drafts are the experiments that use the data to change the formula.
You know what? You're absolutely right in a lot of respects there. And one of the things that you did mention there was people going to ESPN and looking through magazines and stuff like that. I got to tell you, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's actually a very good thing that you look at ESPN,
But
look at CBS.
not when you're on the clock.
Not when you're on the clock.
Yeah, that's what I was
beforehand. Yeah, no, not when you're on the clock. Never when you're on the clock.
Do it as much as possible.
But you should do it beforehand. Yeah. That gives you an understanding of not just what the fantasy world thinks in general, all the different sites out there, but it's going to give you an understanding of what the other guys in your league probably are thinking as well. You know, not everybody goes to our site, obviously. You know, most people will go to ESPN, CBS, Yahoo, or, you know, one of those big sites. And most of the guys in your league probably do the same thing. So you'll have an understanding of what they're thinking if you go through each of their rankings and their tiers and whatnot, and whatever sort of information they have out there. Use it to your advantage. Then come to our site and refine it and become much better at what you're doing than those guys who just go to the comment sites out there.
Our next batch, and I'll let you get in there, our next batch of individual tiers pieces, we got them in the draft kit, but we're going to release a couple of our own version 3 of our tiers as free content. Dawg, they finally caught up to you. They caught up to you. It's been a good run. It's been a good run. They got you. No, I see a spotlight.
Is this where they shot like The Fugitive or whatever?
Yeah, it is. Jeez Louise. All right, that was a close one. We thought they caught Dawg.
Yep.
Skip bail. Dawg the bounty helicopter. Yeah, you know, just going back to the tiers thing. I kind of lost my train of thought there. Got fired up with the helicopter, but give a little thought, and I'll remember what I was saying earlier.
Well,
Pressure's back on you.
Real quick, I want to get back to something you were talking about in making the mistake of zeroing in on one position, and tiers protects you against doing that. Let's say you're in the 4th round and you already have a couple running backs. Let's say you decided to go running back, or, you know, maybe you were the 9th pick and you happen to have a couple of great guys sitting there for you at 9 and 12 on the wraparound, assuming there's 10 teams in your league. You come back to the 3rd round and maybe you grabbed maybe Andrew Luck was there and you're like, oh shit, I got to grab him now. Of course, you're going to be zeroing in on wide receivers right there. The thing that tiers does is it allows you not to zero in on that wide receiver right there, because when it comes to your pick, you can look at those tiers and let's say 9, 10, 12, 15 of those wide receivers are gone, and there's 5 that are in your next tier that are all the same type of guy that you have no choice, no preference for whatsoever. They're all in the same tier. They're all just lined up next to each other, yet there's a steal. There's maybe Gronk is still there. Your top tier, the absolute best tight end is still there. Maybe even a running back that shouldn't still be there is actually sitting there waiting for you, even though you have 2 running backs. It allows you to see the value pick that's right next to the position that you could be zeroing in on. You could have blank spots for 15 spots in the wide receiver position right next to it. Nothing's gone in the tight ends. The top tight end is sitting right there for you. It allows you to actually see it instead of fumbling through all these pages or going through your computer and going to ESPN and going to all different websites and magazines and stuff. It's right there in front of you. You see it. Holy shit, this guy's still here. I'm grabbing him. It's the beauty of having everything in one sheet right there in front of you.
Here's the thing. everybody uses their tiers differently, and I think I've heard about 4 different ways that people use their tiers. Let me kind of give you a couple examples of each. There's, Person A. Person A has tier 1 players. There is 10 players in tier 1, and he divides them up between positions. So maybe it's 2 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, 4 receivers, 1 tight end. 10 positions, boom, that's it. That's tier 1. Tier 2 then is, so
that's one list? You don't break them out based on position?
No, you're breaking them out by position across, but there's only 10 players in tier 1 total.
Got it.
And now you're going to go, so those are the guys you consider first rounders. Those are tier 1 players. Then there's tier 2 players who are guys you consider round 2s. And then guys who you consider round 3s. And those are your own kind of rankings there. And that's how some people do it. And then there's the guys who, each list is its own kind of solid form rather than going back and forth through the lists and finding different mesh levels through the list. So it's just a basic ranking, but you can sort of see amongst all the positions where you kind of think the value lies. Then there's guys who might not have tier 1 players. So it's like, hey, I don't think it's worth it to draft Gronk. This isn't something I naturally feel, but I'm just saying as an example for this person C. It's like, I don't think it's worth it to draft Gronk in the first round, so he's a tier 2 player for me. So you have no players in tier 1, and then you can kind of break it out that way. And then, there's the way, like, most of us use them as kind of this fungible thing, where you're looking at it as a whole. I think this is probably the best way to use it, because if you're using it during the draft, you can kind of catch those trends. You can move in on runs before they start. You can stop runs when you need to. You can grab great values and great steals, and you can kind of use them in all those different ways. And then there's also people who take their tiers, and how they make them is different than how we make them. We take pretty much every factor we can think of and put it into how we rank the players in our tiers. So, is a guy a riser? Is he a faller? Does he have high touchdown potential? Is he in a great offense? Does he have a great offensive line? Does he have, can he score crazy touchdowns in a single game? Does he have big playability? Does he
have good coaching staff?
Yeah, all these kind of things. And, what's his role? Is he the number 1 on this team, or is he number 2? And we kind of take all those things in there, and that's what finally comes out is our tiers. Our tiers are finally like, you put it all through the dough, and then the dough comes out, and you got an awesome pizza. Now I'm hungry again.
Yeah, you're making me hungry, buddy. Cool. Well, that's something I'll say that really helps me out is that even if everyone in your draft is using tiers, let's say you're in a draft of 10 people and everyone's loves Pyro, or everyone's been on the tiers bandwagon with us, or other sites that are doing as well. We were the pioneer. I'm gonna just let you know that right now. That's a fact. The other people that are doing that stuff, even if everyone's got tiers, their tiers are going to be different than your tiers. So there ain't no right. There's your value perceived through your tiers and how other people rank their players in your draft. Now, what this does do, if you worked your tiers throughout the offseason and didn't cram for the end, you will see as the draft's going on, as names are getting checked off, there are way below guys. I mean, there's times where you'll be seeing like a draft pick that's 15 a wide receiver taken that's 15 down from a guy that you have, or a handful, 7 guys that are still available, and you'll just be like, all right, he doesn't like that player as much as I do. That shows, but the fact is you're crossing out people lower on your tiers. Make sure to use that in the way that Dog says, so you don't lock in on someone, but you see preserve best player on your draft board value, and you can see like, wow, okay, there's starting to be only 2 wide receivers right now that I've got that aren't selected or taken, and they're open and they're available, and then there's 12 cross out wide receivers beneath that, and you look at yourself like, oh man, I might really be benefited and be excited right now to take a wide receiver here that I love, and not, because if I don't, maybe my next pick, those 2 guys are gone, and now I'm spelunking down 13 players, and you might be bummed out about that. Happens to all of us. You can see the value, even if in that situation, maybe you didn't need the wide receiver as much as you needed in another position. it can still help you shine a light on that and have that kind of view. I don't know what this word means, but I love it because I love fungi. But fungible, it's all fungible. But I think that's an important thing where you're crossing guys lower. You know, don't say, oh, this guy's an idiot, he's not doing it. Everyone's got their different perceived value. But use that. Tiers really helps you say, whereas looking at a top overall list or just going by your own head, it really can tell you, like, all right, so we're at that. My guys that I love are evaporating here. Do I need to go to that position because there's a huge drop off, or should I stick with my need? And whatever decision you make could be right or could be wrong, but at least you know the information to make the decision.
And it really does. It helps you identify that steal of the draft so easily. When you're crossed out 10 guys below this one guy that you have up above everybody else there, and you end up grabbing it, there's no better feeling.
It is.
There really is no better feeling when you're drafting. You know, I just got this steal. I can't believe that nobody grabbed this guy. I had 10, 15 guys scratched out below him. I grabbed him. It's an ego boost. It makes you feel good for the rest of the draft. It's just, it's a great feeling. It's a great identifier, the tier system, because you see that one guy up above them all. It's there for the taking. I also got to say, one of the things that we've also talked about in terms of actually setting up your tiers and identifying your tiers. One of the best ways to do that, and I think you came up with this, and I've done this ever since. When you're doing your tiers, take a guy and pit him against the guy right below it. And when pretend like it's coming to you in your draft pick right there, who would you take? This guy or this guy right below it? And if you would take that guy below it, switch him. If you would take the guy 2 guys below, switch him. And you could do that throughout the whole draft. You could do that down through 50 QBs, 80 to 100 running backs, 100, 120 wide receivers. It's a little time consuming, I'll admit it. But hey, it's June. You know, you got some time here. Hopefully you were starting before now too. But do it. Pit them against each other, 1 versus 1. Who would you take, this guy or this guy? If that guy's on top, keep him there. Then go to the next 2. Go to these 2. Go to these 2. It's a beautiful way of doing it. It really helps you identify who you would really take in a draft situation.
And then do some mocks, like we said earlier. And then those pitting against those other guys might be different when you're on the clock and your heart's in it, you know? So you go through that mock, you're like, oh, you know what? Actually, in real time, I took a guy 3 picks lower than another guy that was available as well that I had higher. We don't want you doing that on draft day, but that's why you do through the mocks now, so that when you feel these feelings, when you get a sense of, like you said, that you feel so good, yes, I got that guy or one, or when it feels really bad when you decide to do something else, you know, use the theory of what you thought before in mocks, make the changes, and then they're just going to keep on progressively. More mocks you do, just be more airtight, and by the time it's really time, you are on the clock. You are just going to be like, boom, been here before. This does not seem like a foreign endeavor.
Exactly.
And then you could also pit across positions.
It's true.
So then you're like, ooh, this helps you decide between tier 3 running backs and tier 3 wide receivers.
Good point.
So it might be the same, but okay, let's see. I think my top tier 3 wide receiver right now is Alshon Jeffrey, and I think my top tier 3 running back is
CJ or Hill?
No, Matt Forte. I
Forte.
think.
Okay.
And I'm just moving
That's a
Matt
good idea.
Forte, you know, down and down. But we'll talk about that at a different time. And it's just like, you know, where would I go first? And, you know, when we create our kind of top 200 list, that's what we're always doing. It's like, you know, even though we always push up running backs because everybody always seems to do it, you know, you're literally sitting there taking 2 guys, looking at them. It's like, who would be taken first? Who is being taken first? Who would I take first? Who would you take first? And who would you take first? And that's kind of how we come up with that list. And, you know, doing that in our tiers gives you an idea of, because I might go tier 1 running back, tier 2 wide receiver, and then back to tier 3 running back. But that might not be the same case all the time. But hey, that might be something that I kind of think of and get that little action going to where I know that, you know, once tier 4 wide receivers are all gone, I'm going to load up on running backs. And once tier, 3 tight ends are gone, I'm not taking anybody until round 14. And once tier 1 QBs are gone, I'm waiting as long as I possibly can.
Another thing about tiers is the efficiency of it. It helps you keep, first of all, you should throughout the offseason be keeping track of the news. You know, there's news every single day about players. Roto-World's a good place to go, where they're constantly updating, things that are happening in practice, with injuries, whatnot, who's coming back, who's falling off, all that sort of stuff.
Twitter's amazing.
Twitter, there's a lot of different places you can go to figure out the news. But when you have that tier sheet in front of you, it makes it a lot easier to identify who's affected by every little thing that happens. When a star quarterback for a team gets injured, it not only affects that quarterback, obviously, and the backup quarterback, but it also affects the 2-3 receivers within that team, and it can affect the tight end. It can even affect the running back. When you have those tiers right there, you can move each of those guys up or down accordingly right there in front of you instead of fumbling through a bunch of sheets. Sometimes you even forget, after going through a couple of sheets, you're like, God, I just moved like 5 guys. That must be it. You forget the tight ends. Shit, I forgot to move that guy, or I forgot to move up. I just crossed out Palmer, and I forgot to move up, Drew Stanton or whatever. It's so much easier when you have it all in front of you. It's so efficient. It's just a quicker, simpler way to do things.
I think going on what you were just saying also, and we know this because we do our tiers within an Excel sheet. Our next few pieces, like I said, will give you that template so you can put it in your own. In the draft kit, as Dawgmatica alluded to, there's a column for your tiers for each position, so you can pick that up. It's pyromaniac.com, and there in the main navigation there's a draft kit link. Grab that thing; is sick. Everyone, if you buy it now, we've got another one coming out next week, which is version 3. Then another one the following month, version 4. Another one the following, version 5, and then the week prior to the season starting. Pick it up; it's sweet. We put so much work into it. These guys are just awesome with that, man. Wow, it's crazy. But what I was basically saying was the fact that when you're going through those tiers, I totally lost my train of thought. I'm 2 for 2. But I know what I was going to say. When you're going through your tiers, I like to put a number within each bracket of tiers to kind of get a sense of how many, you look and sometimes you're down in tier 4, and you look at the number at the top of that tier, and you're like, these are running backs ranked 12 through 17. And I think that's a smart thing to do to help kind of, as you're crossing things off, you get a sense of the number of that player and where he's falling in the running back rank, in the wide receiver, in the tight end rank. So I think that's a smart thing to do. Another thing that I think, and here's what I lost my train of thought on, is the fact that when you're making these files, when you're doing these files in Excel, sometimes you forget, and you're copying and pasting from one cell and replacing it with someone else. There are times that you might forget to, phone call happens right in the middle of a copy and a paste, and you miss a player. So another reason to get going now, and I post it up, and Dawgmatic's like, you missed this guy, that guy, and that guy, and you're just like, oh crap, all right, I'll put him back in. And then, starting now gets you in a mock draft. You can kind of recognize these things. You can get a sense like, oh my God, Charles Johnson, the wide receiver for Minnesota Vikings, somehow is not on my list of wide receivers. Must have either totally left him off or screwed up when I was changing the players around. Make sure you're diligent, that you go through an overall ranking list afterwards, or some of your notes, and you got every player that you would draft. Last thing I'm going to say here, and I'll hand off the baton to somebody else, is don't be afraid if you don't want a guy on your team. We can't do this because we're trying to give information to you, and we don't want to leave out players. But when I go into a draft, there are usually about 5 to 10 players I don't want on my team
at all.
And it kind of grows. It's a growing list because they're the 5 guys that burned you last year. They're like, I'm not doing that guy. So right before you're done with your tiers, pit them up against each other, have them in there. But if you look at a guy and like, I do not want him on my team, take him out.
You don't have to have him in there. Yeah, I remember in years past, like Santonio Holmes. I will never take him on my team. Why have him in your tiers? Just don't have him there.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about him being above somebody else, pushing other people down. Just don't have him in there at all.
Brandon Marshall, I am not touching with the 10-foot pole.
Who?
So, Brandon Marshall.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Matt Asiata. That's the bane of your existence.
No chance.
I hated Percy Harvin, and he dropped for good reason. But he's still on my tiers, and it was one of those things where, wow, he's the highest on my tiers. This is deep in the draft, and you go and you grab him, and you're like, wait, no, I didn't want Percy Harvin on my team. Why didn't I just take him off the tiers?
It's a trap.
Yeah, it's a trap.
It is.
Exactly.
If you don't have him there, you're not going to take him. If Percy Harvin, I guess you would maybe. I mean, maybe not this year, but a couple of years ago, you would probably still rank him in the 30s, 20s, somewhere in that zone, because he was coming off some decent seasons there. You probably made the mistake of actually drafting him if you didn't, even if you didn't want him. You're like, God, I know he's gonna start to falter. Yeah, but if he wasn't there, you wouldn't have had him on your team. Sure enough, you drafted him. He was on your team, and he sucked for you. Ended up in last.
It's true. So don't be afraid to take a player out of the mix. What else you guys got?
I got another thing I wouldn't mind mentioning here, and it's something that I've mentioned on other podcasts and other videocasts when making your tiers or making your rankings or whatever. You go down through your rankings and you come to the 30 range, the 40 range, even the 50 range. There are times down there where you should start highlighting players. These guys may not be guys that you would say put up to like 15 or 14 or way up in that range where you want to take them. But if they're down there and you highlight them, I'm talking about these are guys that you think can perform above where you have them, where they're down there in the ranks. I mean, Brandon Marshall, I don't think is going to have nearly as great a year as he's had in years past, obviously, on different teams. He's obviously not in the greatest situation there, being in New York now with the Jets. But I will tell you right now, he'll probably still be ranked up above a lot of those guys that are going to be lower than me, simply because the possibilities are there. He is a catch monster. He's a target monster. And
he forces coaches to throw to him.
He forces coaches to throw to him, and he's a big body that could be used in the end zone. However, I still probably wouldn't want him. I believe that there are going to be guys down in the 30, 40, 50 range that could possibly put up his type of numbers this year. Those are guys I'm going to highlight. Do the same thing with running backs. Right. There's going to be the way down in the tiers. Guys are down in the 30, 40 range or something like, Buck Allen or something. It's a
Or who'd you take from me the other day? Jay Ajayi?
Ajayi, yeah. For, the backup to Lamar Miller or Amir Abdullah now for the Lions. He's moving up the list, so he'll probably be going.
He's been cock-blocking your Ajayis for years now.
Nice. Although with his outfit, I don't think I need to do it. Anyway, but seriously, you should definitely highlight certain guys down in the draft, because down on your tiers, because those are the guys that, hey, other guys are going to forget about them. Those are guys you got to pinpoint later in drafts, in rounds 8, 9, 10 come around. Look at those guys who are highlighted. Those are guys you got to want to swoop in and pick up immediately.
That's awesome you say that. Actually, I'm going to do what you said for my drafts this year. What I usually do is after I print them, I put a little, a little red dot to the right of them, and know that, hey, in some of the mock drafts you've done and some of the models you've done preseason or whatever, you liked these guys on your teams. You felt really confident. There's a couple of stories that we were talking about before the show where your Dawgmatica goes, you know what I realized out of that mock? Or this is your write-up for the draft kit. The real thing I realized about my draft is I feel comfortable with Jamal Charles being my running back #1 this year, the volume and all that stuff. That's kind of what mock drafting does and helps you out with, and I thought that was really smart. But putting a dot next to guys that when in your mock drafts, you saw the value there. You were excited about that pick. You looked at him on your team, even if he's a bench or a role player or needs an injury in front of him, but you were just like, you know what? That Nile Davis pick that I was able to pull out in 14th round, 12th round, whatever it is, wow. Right now he's not going to get that much. He's not going to do it. But what if? And I'm not trying to have the injury guy take the guy you feel. I think for you, if you're going to be a Jamal Charles, I think you should. That's a handcuff city for you.
Absolutely.
A handcuff city. Get that guy, and then if you have that heartbreak, at least you got the backup plan. So I'm going to do your style. Instead of a little red dot next to it, do a light highlight over it where it's like, all right, there's a range coming. There's a lot of, there's about next 5 guys, and one of the guys in here is highlighted. Maybe you can wait a little bit longer and in your drafting, look somewhere else because you see 4 or 5 guys in your tiers before that highlighted guy. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
One of the other things I like to do, if possible, is like if I'm drafting on a Yahoo league, I'll put Yahoo ADP next to every guy compared to my tiers, and that'll let me know where I can find a couple values, where I can wait on a guy a couple rounds, where I have to take a guy earlier if I want him, rather than compared to other sites, because between CBS and Yahoo and ESPN, it's also different in terms of ADP. So you're going to be able to kind of, you're going off their rankings list. So when you're making that list your own and you want to like extrapolate a little bit extra value and just squeeze the rest of the people in your league. It's one of the things I like to do as well.
I would say the one thing that I do online, there's two things I do online other than my draft sheet, and that is making sure you are abreast and aware of the actual draft room. Make sure if you got your tiers here, you're crossing guys off, but you got to see what other guys are taking and know that if you have a need at quarterback and you're, pick number 3 or 4 and it's about to go back to 3, 2, 1 serpentine and come back to you, and you see that all these guys have taken quarterbacks in the last 3 rounds, but you still need a quarterback. Well, you can get burned, but take the chance and grab a non-quarterback there, so that you're not picking a quarterback 3 picks, 6 picks when it comes back to you, when those guys weren't going to take one. So I do look at the draft room real time, because just crossing those things off don't tell you the value or the constructs of the other teams that are drafting. That's very important. And the other thing I do is what you were just saying, Stagg Party. If I'm on Yahoo, I've got Yahoo's rankings sitting there on one screen, so I know the guy that's just either preset his team or where that when you go to all position and you're about to select guy to put him in your draft list, you can see their rankings and how other people are that aren't as awesome as you and us Pyro guys, who's just going to take the top guy in Yahoo's rankings. So that's a smart thing to do. Literally the only 2 things you need to do when you bring in tiers, other than maybe get everyone really baked and drunk and go
propaganda.
And set some propaganda BS. Get yourself some beers and drink so much that you probably have to take a piss every once in a while. But that's all you need is those 3 things.
Absolutely, I love it.
We got anything else? I think we're
good.
Go
on for days.
Yeah, you guys check out our tiers. We're going to be putting individual pieces. I think we'll probably put up all of ours in the next 2 weeks. They're in the draft kit. They're awesome. The draft kit is just, it's awesome, man. It's got us all of them in one page. Then it shows all of our Stagg Party and Houdinis next to each other. The next version actually is going to have OCs and Mo's, or is that not the case? Okay.
I think so.
I think so. Might not, but at some point we're gonna have other people's. It's just sweet, amazing. Then we do our collective Pyro tiers. That's one of the columns that uses all of 4 of ours, the averages, to really slot the guys, and that's kind of our Pyro rankings that we do preseason. That's kind of our one tote the company line. Anyway, tiers for you. Use them. Stagg Party, Dawgmatica, D-Rex. We are Pyromaniac.com. Out. Thanks for listening. Happy hunting. Let's crush your opponents.
Peace.